Stephanie Hurne is a writer who set up her own publishing house, and she's with us here just now. How are you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing smashing. I'm glad that we've finally got this set up because you had some issues and you were saying your computer's from the 1920s.
Yes. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So what gave you the idea to set up your own publishing house?
I'm not going to lie to you. It was a couple of glasses of white Zinfandel that were to blame. Basically, back in 2018, I self-published my first book, The Light, on Amazon, just on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, with lockdown on our hands, I picked up an idea I'd had back in the day for The Diseased, which is the one that's coming out in September. I queried a few literary agents, and I just mentally, I couldn't take the process.
Yeah.
It's quite a process. So I had a few glasses of wine and I thought, how difficult can it be to set up your own indie publishing house?
Yeah.
Quite difficult, it turns out.
Yeah. And what benefit does a publishing house have compared to self-publishing like you were doing before?
Self-publishing, you can do all the things that I'm doing without being a publishing house, but it adds sort of an air of gravitas to it, I think, because if you publish just through KDP, which is Amazon, then you tend to use an Amazon ISBN, and that book's never going to get in bookshops. It's never going to go anywhere else other than Amazon. They do account for about 80% of book sales, so it's always worth being on Amazon. No matter what you feel about Jeff Bezos, it's always worth being on Amazon. So what I did is I went to Nielsen. They control the ISBNs for the UK. So I don't know what ISBN stands for, to be honest with you, but all books have to have one. I imagine it's like International Standard Book Number, let's say.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I said it with an air of like authority as well, didn't I? So
Yes. Because there's ISDN, but that's something completely different. That's about phone lines and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to apply to them to get this ISBN number. And once you've got that, you can then apply to other distributors such as Ingram Sparks, who I've chosen to use, just based on Googles and reviews, no other reason. And then once you've got it published on there, it's such a process. Then you go to Gardeners, who are a distributor who distribute into bookshops and libraries. Then once you've got it agreed with Gardeners, then you have to go back to Nielsen, because apparently you have to have a specific thing to get a synopsis of your book put on websites, which I never knew. So that was quite a shock a couple of weeks ago. And then finally, then you can start approaching bookshops like Waterstones and Foyles, and also your independent bookshops. So that's sort of the benefit I saw to setting up my own indie publishing house. Plus, in 5 to 10 years, I would love to take somebody else on this journey to be able to invest in them and their book in the way that I've invested in mine. That's sort of my dream with it.
Yeah. I've just looked it up and I think you were exactly right. The International Standard Book Number.
Oh, look at that. I do know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Yeah. So I guess, is this publishing house mainly for your books at the moment?
Yes. Basically, I'm trying to learn everything through publishing my own books rather than taking a punt with somebody else's baby.
Yeah.
Because if it all goes Pete Tong with my own, at least I've only upset myself.
Yeah. Because there is a lot of responsibility that comes with using somebody else's book, isn't there?
Oh, yes. I couldn't imagine, because obviously I've reached out to editors and publicists, and I'm doing that with my own work. So at least if it doesn't work with this book, I'm only risking my own story, not somebody else's. Because as a writer, I know how much people invest in their stories and their characters. And I would hate to not do somebody else's justice.
Yeah. So what kind of books do you tend to write?
My mum calls them weird books. This new one is like a thriller suspense book, but it's got a slight touch of sci-fi to it. Whereas the first 2 books I wrote were probably more like young adult horror books. I just can't seem to write happy things.
That's peculiar. Why do you think you can't write about happy things?
I think it's harder. It's definitely comedy and romance and happy endings are so much harder to write. I can't remember who said it, but when I was at uni, I remember reading about a director who said it's so much easier to make your audience cry than it is to make them laugh. And I 100% agree with that. I read these romance novels and stuff like that. And I wish I could write like that. And I just don't have the capacity.
That's the thing, I suppose, because if you're trying to write a comedy book, you might think it comes across quite well, but it might not land at all.
Exactly. And humor is so subjective. There's so many different senses of humor in the world. And I think to try and tap into that successfully is such a skill. And I have so much respect for the people that do that, but it's just not in my toolbox, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, I can't help but notice you've got loads of post-it notes all around the room. How organised are you when it comes to coming up with ideas?
Not very organised. I'm what they call a pantser in the writing community, which basically means I make it up as I go along, which is great for a first book. But when you're doing a follow-up, you can't just go for it because you obviously have to tie in the characters and the mysteries and stuff like that. So this is my attempt at being organised. As you can see, it's going really well.
Do the different colours mean anything, or did you just run out of one colour?
On this wall, they don't mean anything because this is just my idea wall for different ideas that I'm not writing at the moment. Whereas this one behind me, the green post-its are for my central characters, the yellow are for my secondary, and then my pink are for my background, just so I know. And there were other post-its on there saying who was dead and who was missing, etc. But I've removed those because of spoilers.
Yes. We can't really read them anyway from here, so it's fine.
That's all right then.
Yes. The first book, you're writing it as you go. Does that work? Because, of course, a lot of people prefer to know where they're going to end before they start.
Yes, I've got to say, I don't tend to... I'll sit and think about an idea for a long time and jot some ideas down. So I'm working on Body Count at the moment, which is the follow-up to The Diseased. So I wrote the first few chapters just to sort of get into it. And then I put it down because I didn't know how it was going to end. Like you say, I like to know where I start and I like to know where I end, and then everything else is just made up.
Yeah. When you're writing, a lot of authors aren't really thinking much about it. They feel it just sort of comes to them. Does that happen to you, or are you still sort of thinking about it and making the decisions?
I wouldn't say that my characters have a life of their own, because I know some writers do get that. I sort of guide them. So Paige, who's my central character in these current books.
Good name for a book.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's a good name for a character, isn't it, Paige?
Yeah.
Also, my niece's name, that's where I got it from. So we know I'm not going to kill her off because I can't kill off my niece. My brother's going to kill me for saying that. So basically, Paige, like, if I'm stuck on a plot point, specifically like with her mum, because they have a very complicated relationship, I'll sort of play through different scenarios in my head. So Paige doesn't decide what happens, but I'll put her in different scenarios and sort of think, oh, would she react like this and would she react like that? And that's sort of how I work anyway.
Yeah. What books have you got coming up? Are there plans for more, even after the ones that you're currently writing?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got The Disease coming out in September, and I'm hoping to get Body Count out next year, which is a shock for me because I normally take about 2 years to write a book. Yeah. So I'm all guns are blazing. And then I'll do, there's one of my characters, Regina, in The Disease that's really interesting. So I'm going to do a separate book for her. And then eventually I'm going to leave behind that universe. And over there, I've got an idea for a fantasy book, which I've never tried before. So that's a lot of world building going on over here. Yeah. And that's going to be, I think, called The Decision of Souls, which I really like that title. Yeah. But I've no idea when that will come out. It will just happen when it happens.
Yeah. Is it quite scary to work on a genre that you've never done before?
Yes, because especially when it's a fantasy genre, my husband loves fantasy books. So I know how passionate they can be about the genre. They're probably one of the most passionate genre lovers, I would say, other than romance. They tend to be really passionate about their books. So there's certain things that I feel anyway that you have to adhere to in order to be respectful of the genre. So that is a bit terrifying, but it's also, I love learning new things. So I love just going on Google and just looking on like Reddit forums and D&D forums, because they're brilliant brilliant. Like the stuff people do in Dungeons and Dragons, they are writers. Do you know what I mean? Like I read some of this stuff and I think that's fantastic world building and I'm learning from all of that. So that's all it is. I just love learning, basically.
Yeah.
I'm a dork.
Of course, writing multiple books in the same universe, does the inspiration come naturally to you? Because maybe it's hard to keep things fresh with the same characters and things.
Absolutely. I had that with the second part of The Light. I was desperate to finish it because I wanted to move on to a new project. I was a bit fed up of that world, and it shows in the book. And somebody gave it a review on Goodreads and said it feels rushed. And I wanted to reply saying, yeah, it was rushed. I'm sorry. So I'm trying to take my time with this one. I figure if I do The Diseased and Body Count, and then by doing Regina's book, because it's in the same universe but a different time period, that might give me a bit of a mind break from Paige's world.
That's interesting about it being rushed. In what way? Do you think it was just things happened too quickly?
Yes, the pacing in the second book, it was, I mean, I still love that book. I love those characters. But I look back at it and I definitely do think I could have done so much better now, because I think, again, with the learning, I'm learning from every book I write. So people that read The Light and have read The Diseased have pointed out how much better the writing style is, and the pacing is the thing people always point out.
Yeah.
So
pacing is a hard balance though, isn't it? Because you don't want to make it so slow paced as well that people get bored.
Exactly. And you don't want to spend like 4 pages describing a tree, but you want people to be in the world that you want them to be in. It's very difficult. It's definitely a juggling act.
Yeah. 4 pages describing a tree. That sounds like something you'd be told to do at school for.
Exactly.
When you're writing and having a publishing house as well, do you find the business side of the publishing house to be maybe stressful, or you'd rather just do the writing, or do you kind of enjoy it still?
I think because the publishing side of it is so new and so fresh, I am definitely still enjoying it. But I'm also saying that from the fact that I've got all the paperwork done. So when I was doing all the paperwork and I didn't have time to write, that was tough. So I just keep reminding myself that it's only going to be this hard one time. For all the other books, it's going to be so much easier because all the paperwork's done. And again, just learning. I just love learning all these new things and also making connections. Like I'm doing a blog tour in September around The Diseased. I'm working with a lady called Anne Carter, and she is so lovely, and it's been so great to connect with her. And doing the audiobook, something I've never, ever done before. I'm working with Sophie Linfield, who is amazing, absolutely amazing. And connecting with her, it's just been great to meet these people that are so good at what they do and learn from them.
Yeah. You watch a lot of telly and Netflix as well, don't you? So
Yes.
Do you think that the fantasy genre, the book that you're planning on writing, will come more naturally than you would expect, maybe?
I think so, especially because the things we tend to watch, I mean, we watch a wide variety of shows, but at the moment we've just finished Umbrella Academy. We're going to watch The Last Stranger Things tomorrow night, which don't nobody tell me anything. I've lasted this long without knowing.
Yes.
So we tend to watch sort of that fantasy horror genre. So I definitely think that will help when it finally comes time to write this bad boy.
Yeah. I haven't bothered with the latest series of Stranger Things yet. Is it good?
Yes, it's very good. It is very, very good.
Okay. I shall have to watch it at some point when I get the
Although
chance.
maybe drop me a text on Thursday and ask me after I've watched the final one, because I'll tell you if it's
Yeah,
worth it or
it's
not.
disappointing. Well, where are we able to find your publishing house everywhere and also all your books?
The publishing house doesn't have a website yet. That's next year's plan, to build all of that. But you can find me and the publishing house through SM Thomas, that's M for mother, .co.uk. There's contact links on there, and it all comes through to me because I'm just a one-woman band. But hopefully next year, the publishing house, I'm doing all the background stuff this year, and next year I'm gonna make it real.
Yeah. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great to have you on the show.
It's been fantastic to be here. Thank you.